Shalom Aleichem and welcome everyone as we, Baruch Hashem, have the opportunity to prepare for Shabbat Parshat Vaera. And we are in the middle of the story of Moshe Rabbeinu working on Hashem's command to free the Jewish people. And in last week's Parashah, Moshe Rabbeinu goes to Paro. He says, free them. Paro says they must have too much free time on them. We're going to give them to do more work. And the people weren't happy that Moshe got involved, and now they have to work more. And in this week's Parashah, Hashem says, Moshe, I'm going to take them out. I'm going to punish the Egyptians, and I'm going to take the Jews out. And the Pasuk says, in chapter 6, verse 9, Vaydaber Moshe ken el bnei Yisrael, and Moshe spoke these words to the Jewish people that Hashem is going to save them. He's going to take them out of Mitzrayim. And the Pasuk says, V'lo shama'u el Moshe. And the Jewish people didn't listen to Moshe. Why didn't they listen to Moshe? Mikotze ruach u'ma'avodah kasha. Because they were short of breath and because of the hard work. They were short of breath. They were working so hard that they had no time to breathe. And the work was very, very hard. Rav Elyashiv, he says an amazing understanding here. He says, why did the Torah say they didn't listen to Moshe because they were short of breath and because of the hard work? Just say they didn't listen to Moshe. Why you have to tell me mikotze ruach ma'avodah kasha, because of the short breath and hard work? Rabbi Yashiv says you should know that is the Jewish nature. A Jew by default listens to Chachamim. A Jew by default listens to his rabbis, listens to the Torah. But unfortunately, if there is some sort of problem, is mokotze ruach ma'avodah kasha, if there is shortness, there's hard work, there's depression, dejection, indifference, low self-esteem, hopelessness, that causes a Jew not to listen. And someone unfortunately got stuck into that. We have to help getting him out, because a Jew really does listen. A Jew really does listen at all times. It's only if he has mikotze ruach ma'avodah kasha, then he does not listen. Now the truth is, you have to understand why they didn't listen. Okay, they had hard work and stuff, but imagine you're working hard and you're enslaved, and someone comes over to you and tells you, I'm going to free you, I'm taking you out of here. Wouldn't you jump up and say, I'm excited, let me go with you, I'm with you, I'm with this, I want to get out of this? And so why? Why did they completely ignore the message that Moshe Rabbeinu was saying in the name of Hashem? And here in the Pninim al Torah, he wants to say, it's all about self-esteem. When a person gives up hope, when you give up hope, you no longer care about anything. He doesn't care about salvation anymore. He doesn't care about being free. He already established in his mind that it no longer can happen. He already considered himself gone. It's over for me. Nothing's ever going to change. And when he lost his self-esteem, and without self-esteem, one cannot function. With a low self-esteem, people will go through the motions of life. But honestly, deep inside, there is no functioning life in them. Rav Nachman Breslov teaches that the greatest gift that we can give a person is the gift of self-esteem. It's a gift of giving them self-confidence and making them feel good. Rabbi Shlomo Carlebach would say, when you put your children away to bed at night, you should tell them how great they are, how pretty they are. And when they wake up in the morning, tell them what a beautiful world they live in. Give them these healthy, positive attitudes about life. Because if they have low self-esteem, they have nothing. There's nowhere to go forward. And here he brings a true story that happened to Rav Shlomo Carlebach himself. That Shlomo Carlebach was a very lively person. He sang, he said stories, and he got a lot of people to do tshuva. And once he was invited to come to a upstate New York prison that had a small number of Jewish inmates, and it was the holiday season, and they were looking for a rabbi to come and give a little bit of cheer, a little bit of chizuk, a little bit of inspiration to the prisoners. So they called Rabbi Korbach to come, and he came up there, and it was not an easy ride. It took him 3 hours one way, and when he finally got there, in his signature style, he sang, he said stories, and he gave a lot of chizuk to the prisoners that he came to visit.
Inmates.
Oh, the inmates. And before he left, he turned to the prison ward and he says to the warden, he says, listen, I'm already here. I know you invited me to come speak to the Jewish prisoners. I already did that. But I'm here anyway. Let me go around to the rest of the cell blocks and let me see if I can inspire the rest of the people as well. And the warden was a little bit taken aback. He wasn't ready for such a request. But after clearing it with his superiors, he let Rabbi Shlomo Carlebach go from cell block to cell block. And Rabbi Shlomo Carlebach went around and he gave each one of the person that he could, anyone who wanted, he gave them a hug. He gave them words of chizuk. He told them, you're my holy brother. How are you? What can I do? And they spoke. Some people made fun of him. Some people liked it. Some people this, some people that. And no one can say that Shlomo Carlebach was a prejudiced, a racist. He spoke to every single race, color, creed, whatever that was there. He spoke to and he did his best to give them a little bit of chizuk. As Rabbi Carlebach was about to leave, suddenly a huge, burly inmate came running over to him. This man was a giant, heavily muscled and covered with tattoos. And he turns to Rabbi Carlebach and he says, Rabbi, Rabbi. And Rabbi Carlebach turns around and says in his signature style, yes, my holy friend. How can I help you, my holy friend? And this giant of a man stood for a moment, awkwardly looking at the ground, not sure how to bring out what he wants to say. And then he just says it. He says, Rabbi, I love your embrace so much, the hug that you gave me. Can you please give me one more hug? And Rabbi Carlebach, with his characteristic smile, opened his arms and embraced the prisoner. And the man wrapped his arms around Rabbi Carlebach and he began to cry. And they stood there for a few moments. And the prisoner finally said to Rabbi Carlebach, he said, never in my entire life has someone hugged me the way you did. He says, I think that if my parents and my family would have hugged me like this when I was growing up, I would have never turned to a life of crime. It's a true story. You see how much when you give somebody chizuk, you give them a feeling that they belong, that they have value, that they're special, that you love them, how much it can make them grow. Especially our children, how much we have to instill the self-esteem and self-confidence in them, make them, you are special, you can do stuff, you can reach for the skies. And this, we see, was the issue when the Jews didn't listen to Moshe, because they already lost their self-confidence. We, Baruch Hashem, have self-esteem, and we have to pass it on to others, and especially to our children. But the Torah tells us that Moshe Rabbeinu, Hashem says, go to Baal Paro, go speak to Paro, Melech Mitzrayim, tell him to lead, tell him to send the Jews out. Moshe said to the Hashem, Hem b'nei Yisrael, lo shemu elai. The Jewish people are not listening to me. Ve'ech yishme'eni Paro. How will Paro listen to me? Va'ani aras sefatayim. And I'm heavy of lips, I can't speak well. And yet Hashem says, go and speak. Maybe Moshe is right. Maybe Moshe is right. No one's listening to me. Maybe I should stop speaking. Nobody's listening. No one's paying attention. Maybe it's not worth it. Maybe I should stop. But no, Hashem continues to send him. You know why? We have to remember that holy words that come from the heart, like the words of Moshe Rabbeinu that come from Hashem, and he's sharing to the Jewish people, and he's going to tell Paro these words. these words will penetrate. It will get through. Maybe not right now, but eventually it will get through. I mean, look, the Jewish people were eventually freed from Israel. They didn't want to listen. But when you keep talking the truth, when you keep talking the Torah truth that Kadosh Baruch Hu said what to say, it's going to be listened to. Har Yisrael Mevizhnitz would take a stroll every Erev Shabbat, Friday, with his gabbai. One Friday, his walk took him to the home of a Jew who became mixed up in the Enlightenment, the Haskalah, with the Reform movement. And this Jew was also a bank manager. This enlightened Jew was not against rabbis per se, he didn't hate them. He felt, I'm going to live my life my way that I want. And so, Rabbi Yisrael Mevizhnitz goes there, knocks on his door. He opens the door, he sees the Rabbi Mevizhnitz, and the Mevizhnitz Rebbe says, can I come sit down in your house? He's shocked. All of a sudden, the Mevizhnitz Rebbe is coming to his house. He's a reformist. The rabbi sits down. His gabbai sits down next to him. And this host now starts to take out some water, some other stuff. And the Rabbi Yisrael Mevizhnitz is just sitting there quietly. Sits about 10 minutes quietly. He gets up and he says, thank you, and we're leaving. So this guy says, Rabbi, you came, you sat, you didn't take anything, and you just left. Why did you come? What was this whole idea? So the Rebbe said, let me tell you something. I came here to do a mitzvah. What mitzvah is that? He says, I tell you. We have a mitzvah that it's important to tell people about what they did wrong, or how they can fix something, or what they can do, if you know they're going to listen to you. If you know they're not going to listen to you, then you have a mitzvah not to say anything. If you know for sure they're not going to listen to you, you don't say anything. So I came here tonight because I have something to tell you, but I know you're not going to listen to me, so I didn't say it. To fulfill the mitzvah of not telling someone who won't listen, I won't say anything to you. And now he said, Rabbi, how do you know I'm not going to listen? Maybe I'm going to listen. Maybe I'm going to listen. The Rabbi says, I know 100% you're not listening to me. He says, Rabbi, maybe I'm going to listen. Just say it. I said, I know 100% you're not going to listen. He says, Rabbi, I'm telling you, I'm going to listen. He says, you sure? He says, yeah. He says, okay. You're a bank manager of your bank, right? There is an almana, there's a widow, that her house, she can't pay the mortgage. And the bank wants to take the house back. She has nowhere to live, no place to stay. I want you to cancel her mortgage that she can live in this house. He says, Rabbi, what are you talking about? I'm a bank manager. I don't own the loan. The loan belongs to the bank. I can't do anything. He says, Rabbi says, you see, I told you you won't listen. Why you made me tell you? I told you you're not going to listen. He says, Rabbi, what do you mean not listen? It's not up to me. The Rabbi says, listen, this is exactly what I said. I knew you would not help her. I'm leaving. I have nothing to do. I shouldn't have told you. He says, what do you want me to do? I'm not in charge. The banker was running after the Rebbe as the Rebbe is leaving. And he says, Rebbe, I'll try to do something. Rebbe says, I don't know what you're talking about. He says, fine. I will pay her loan off with my own monies. And this way the almana can stay in her house. When the Gabbai saw this, as they walked away from him, the Rebbe turned to the Gabbai and said, this is why Moshe Rabbeinu continued to go to Klal Yisrael, even though they weren't listening, because eventually it will get through. Ultimately, it will be heard. Such holy words have to be heard. It's going to be blocked for a little bit, but if you continue, it will be heard. The Pasuk tells us in the Parashah that Moshe Rabbeinu, he was told to go and warn Paro about the Makot. And it says in Pasuk, Lechel Paro baboker, Hine yotze hamayma. Go to Paro in the morning, as he goes to the Nile River, right? Because we all know the Paro decided he was a god. Gods don't use bathrooms. So Paro had a problem here. He's human. He's not a god. He has to use the bathroom. So he wouldn't use the bathroom in the palace. It's very challenging to, you have to go. If I have to go, I run to the bathroom. I can't hold it in all day. He held it in until the morning. And everybody was still sleeping. He got up, he went to the Nile River, did his thing, and he was done. So Hashem tells Moshe Rabbeinu, go there, and warn him over there. Go to Paro, who is in the morning going to the water, and warn him over there. Now, really, how could Paro really think he's a god? So much so to keep it in every single day. It's too much. How does a person get to think that and really believe that? I remember reading a story from Rav Eli Lopayan. He shared a mashal. He said there was a guy who he got off a day from work. And he decided, he was always working very long hours, very tired. He decided that day, he's going to sleep all day. And it was a hot summer day. He put the air conditioner on, everything. He was starting to go to sleep. And he's taking his nap. And the kids outside are playing ball. And he tries to ignore them. It's not working. So what is he going to do? Come and scream at them? It's not going to work. So he opens the window and he says, hey, boys, did you hear that the famous magician, some name, whatever name you want, you can insert, came and he is on the other side of town. He's giving a free show right now. If you leave now, you'll make it right in time for the free show. So the boys said, what? And they took their bikes and everything and they started running there. As these boys started going, the people saw all these kids going. So, where are you going? What are you doing? They said, you don't hear? The famous magician came. So all of a sudden, everybody took out their phones, WhatsApp, social media, Telegram, everywhere, Facebook, everywhere, Instagram. Famous magician is in town, free show right now if you're going to go there. Everybody started to pack out. Cars are going, everything's going. He's in his bed sleeping, thinking he'd made it. Wow, he kicked all the kids out. All of a sudden, he hears all the apartment doors closing, opening. He sees everyone jumping into the cars. Everybody's going somewhere. So he doesn't know what's going on. He opens the window again and he sees his neighbor running out of the apartment building. He says, hey, where are you going? He says, didn't you hear? What are you sleeping? Didn't you hear? The magician, the famous magician of the world is here. You better get up. He says, really? He goes, he grabs his coat, and he grabs his jacket, and he also goes to see the magician who doesn't exist.
That he created.
You see, when you start your own little lie, it goes and goes and goes, and you're going to end up believing it. That was Paro. Paro made up his own lie, and it got out of hand, and then he continued, and there was him going to the Nile every morning, pretending that he was a god. I saw this week, someone posted a beautiful video from Rabbi Biederman. He brought down the Midrash Rabbah on this pasuk. The pasuk says, Lechel Paro b'boker, go to Paro in the morning. He's coming out of the water, and we said because he's using the water as a place for the bathroom. But let me tell you what this Midrash Rabbah says. He says, do you know why Paro was going to the Nile that day? כך היה פרעה רוצה לעסוק בתפילה. ואמר הקדוש ברוך הוא למשה, עד שלא יצא, לך והתייצב לפניו. Hashem told Moshe Rabbeinu, you should know Paro is leaving Mitzrayim, the city of Mitzrayim, which is full of Avodah Zarah. He's going to the Nile. You know why he's going there? He's going there to daven. And I don't want him to daven to me. So you should quickly, Moshe Rabbeinu, go there, stop him, talk to him, make him angry by saying that the Makos are coming, and then he won't daven. My question to you. Who cares about his davening? Paro, 600,000 male Jews he's enslaving, not mentioning the females and how many babies he's killing every morning and night to take a bath in. And yet Hashem tells Moshe Rabbeinu, catch Paro before he prays to me. We learn here a huge lesson. that if Paro's prayer was something we had to stop, then the power of our prayer, we, B'nai Avraham, Yitzchak, Yaakov, pure Nishamot, how much we have to realize how powerful our prayer is. I thought this was a beautiful piece. And this is the Midrash Rabbah 11 on this week's parasha. Let's move on to our third lesson from this week's parasha. Also related to this idea of Paro's lie that was growing. Paro and the Mitzrayim, they're getting punished again and again and again, right? 10, Makos, 10. The Mitzrayim were punished again and again. And every time they see miracles happening, by the Jewish people, they're fine. They're safe, they're good, nothing's happening to them. And by them, all the problems are happening. And yet, they continue to defy Moshe and Aharon. They continue to not listen to Hashem. How can they do that? Once there was a king who raised 10 wild rabid dogs, and he used them to torture and kill anyone he didn't like. Once, one of his ministers was asked an opinion on a certain matter, and the king didn't like it. So he decided that the minister to be thrown to the dogs. The minister said, "King, please, give me 10 days. Let me prepare myself before you throw me in front of the dogs." And during those 10 days, this minister had a great plan. He went to the person in charge of those dogs and asked if he can watch them for the next 10 days. The guard was excited that he could get some time off. And so he told this man, this minister, he can take care of those 10 dogs. And the minister started to bring all these fancy foods for the dogs to eat, started playing the music, started giving them a good time. And for 10 days he did this. When the 10 days were up, the king's soldiers came, took the minister, and they threw him in front of the dogs for punishment. But when he was thrown into the dogs, everyone was amazed to see that the dogs weren't eating him up. They were licking the minister's hands instead of tearing him apart. The king was baffled. The king said, "What happened here? My dogs, you just ripped the person apart." And the minister said to the king, "Your Majesty, you should know for the past 10 days, I served these dogs food, I played them music, I gave them a good time. They didn't forget me, and they didn't forget my service. King, I served you for over 10 years, and for one thing you didn't like, you're throwing me in front of the dogs." So what does the king do? Takes this man and says, "You're right." And he throws him in front of the hungry wolves instead. What happened? You see, just like Paro, no matter how the truth is right in front of him, a wicked person stays in his wicked ways. My Rosh Yeshiva, Rav Reisman Shlitzim, he explains it as follows. He says, people create their own reality. You create the world that you live in. You hear me, Yosef? You create the world that you live in. That whatever you think is going to happen, your expectations, something similar to known as a self-fulfilling prophecy, whatever you think is going to happen, that's what's going to happen. That's what Paro did. Paro wanted to believe that these miracles weren't miracles. Although they're slapping him in the face back and forth. He says, "Nisim, niflaot." He says, "No, I don't believe it." A person creates his reality. Horizon would share the story. So I think a pretty much famous story. I think you ever heard about this. In Africa, when a man wanted to marry a woman, he would give the father of the girl animals. And depending on the quality of the girl, he would give a certain amount of animals. Most girls got 2 or 3 cows that they were paid for to their father. Once it happened that someone gave for his wife, he gave the wife's father 10 cows. You can imagine, all the paparazzi came to the house, taking pictures, writing up articles. A girl was worth 10 cows. I never heard of such a thing. The guy got married, and he moved to his house, and reporters came from all over to see the 10 cow wife. Specials, the 10 cow. So he allows one of the reporters inside his house, and the reporter says, I want to see what's so special. And he sits down and he sees the wife comes in. She looks okay. She's not anything super special. She talks okay. She's normal. She's not super smart. She's not super anything. She's just a regular person. So when the wife was out of earshot, he turns to the husband and he says, everybody's talking about your 10 cow wife. I don't see that she's worth 10 cows. Maybe 4 cows. Maybe 3 cows. But 10? Listen to what this man said. This man said, you see, you think she's a 3 or a 4. I think she's a 10. She thinks she's a 10. And when we both think she's a 10, she's a 10. We see each other as being what we create. And so I'll inflate the value because that's what I see. That's what I understand. The Reisman said that once his, I don't know if it was his mother was in the hospital. And she was on a certain floor in the hospital, a certain floor. And people were saying to Reisman, they said, that floor has terrible nurses. They're very, very mean, very, very harsh. They're not very nice. So Reisman was worried, so he came to visit his mother, and he asked him, how's the staff? How are they? And his mother was like, you should believe. She said, you won't believe it. The nurses here, they're angels. They're angelic nurses. He says, really? And she says, yeah. She turns to one of the nurses, look at my angel right here. And right away the nurse comes in. What do you want? How can I help you? And he says, I can't believe it. And he says, I was there for a few hours. And every nurse, every aide that came in, they were really mamash angels. So polite, so nice, so respectful. He says, I don't understand. Everyone else told me that here was the worst nurses. They were so mean, so harsh. And yet, I was there and I saw angels. He says, I came home and I figured it out. He says, my mother must have told them they're angels. And she kept telling them they're angels. And since she kept telling them they're angels, they lived up to that expectation. They lived up to that reality. You tell someone you're an angel, they become an angel. You tell someone you're not an angel, you're a demon or whatever, they'll become that. It's important that we understand that we create the reality, our own reality, and we have the ability to create someone else's reality by setting up expectations for them. And I think, if you think about all the 3 lessons that we learned in this week's Parashat today, they're all interrelated. Self-esteem, you can build someone's self-esteem. They can't listen to you if there's no self-esteem, but you can give them self-esteem, hug them, tell them good words, make them feel well, and you build them up, and they can listen. We talked about Paro fooling himself, because you can fool yourself so much that you will believe in your own lie and do the most craziest things. And you also set up your reality. You can see something so clear, know something to be so true, but you created your reality to disregard it, to not look at it, to not pay attention to it. And B'ezrat Hashem, learning these lessons, we should not fall into Paro's problems. We should be like Moshe Rabbeinu, no matter how hard, if nobody's listening, still talk, still say good things. Because B'ezrat Hashem, if you do, holy words will reach its destination. And with this, I would love to wish everybody a Shabbat Shalom. Shabbat Shalom.